At the end of last year, I launched Te Aorere Kura, a strategy, first ever strategy to eliminate family violence, sexual violence. The next 6 to 12 months is about delivering on the actions that we said we would do. And so that's about bringing communities together with our agencies, setting up that relationship to get that work done out in our community.
There's a lot of political rhetoric in here. Can very specifically and very simply, can you point to how this is going to deliver?
We know that agencies like MSD, Ministry of Social Development and Oranga Tamariki need to work with community leadership, get the resources out to communities, get a partnership going so that communities can set up their own prevention work, their own projects that they are leading, but with government support. That's a very real way of impacting on the long-term goal of eliminating violence.
But where are the deliverables? Where are the metrics? What are we going to see in this term?
So one of the first things that is a priority in the action plan is to actually work with community to set up those measurements, to set up those outcomes. For far too long, we have been using outdated measurements on whether we know we're doing well or not. Te Aorere Kura, we heard from the sector, you need to create those measurables with us.
I think a lot of people will say that this sounds like a lot more rhetoric. What about more funding for frontline agencies, more specialised police? Can you point to anything tangible that way?
And that is already happening. So, for example, at the end of last year, I announced with Minister Sepuloni a big, massive bump, almost $45 million from ACC for more sexual violence and frontline services. So that will absolutely continue. But remember, Finn, this is an issue that we have not resolved for generations, for many, many decades. So we need to also shift the way that our environment allows for violence to happen, and the sector understands that that is also long-term work, while at the same time we are absolutely strengthening and properly resourcing the response work right now for people when the incidents of harm happens.
Okay, you're also Associate Housing Minister responsible for homelessness. How much do housing prices need to fall in your eyes to become affordable?
Enough to keep things sustainable for people to live quality lives. So, for example, that is why we are calling for an immediate rent freeze.
But just put in how much do they need to come down?
No, that's
double-digit increase year on year.
Okay, so the specifics of that is not up to me, and I will be happy to hear from the economists on how much we can sustain with a soft landing rather than a shock crash. And I'll definitely be listening to our economists.
Just quickly, you also want to establish a ministry for rainbow communities. Can you just explain to me why?
Because for far too long, it is our rainbow communities who have not had the dedicated commitment, focus and resourcing that they absolutely need. It's clear, for example, in both my homelessness portfolio and my prevention violence portfolio, those are the communities who are impacted on the most when it comes to housing challenge and when it comes to violence. So it's very clear that were we to have a dedicated unit, a dedicated ministry, where we can have a lens for the issues for rainbow whānau all across all of our work, we would actually see good outcomes for rainbow whānau and for everyone.
Is there a danger here that it will just be another paper ministry with no real teeth and no ability to deliver?
And that's why we would encourage that it is rainbow people themselves who have the expertise, who are leading the decisions to make
that's
sure we
input,
are.
But that doesn't give it any power.
Oh, well, I'm saying that's where the power should sit. I'm being very, very clear about making sure that setting up a rainbow unit, a rainbow dedicated department would absolutely need to be led with and by rainbow people.
Are the Green Party any more likely to work with National under Chris Luxon than previous leaders?
It's still the National Party, and their policies, regardless of who the leader is, have so far to date wanted to go backwards on climate change action, have wanted to go backwards on inequality, and have wanted to destroy nature rather than protect it. So we would need to see a massive change of policies before we consider working with National, no matter who the leader is.
Finally, war has broken out in Europe. Is New Zealand's response strong enough?
No. We can go further and actually be proactive in building global community consensus for peace building on all sides.
Specifically in this case, though, what does that look like? What does a stronger response look like from a Green perspective?
It actually means leaning into our foreign partnerships and relationships that we have, including with China, who are a massive influence on Russia. It actually says, well, we've got a good good relationship. This is actually the exact time that we should be working with, the big states, but let's not forget the smaller states right around the country and the like minds who have strong independent voice for actual peace building and consensus work.